I've always been a unique person, you know what I mean? Sort of laid back in a way, but very adamant and very passionate about what I believe. I think a lot of times that sort of throws people off because they don't expect me to have the mindset or the process of thought that I do. And so when you come in to watch my channel, you may hear a myriad of thoughts and ideas that could be different from others. What I want you to do is just sit back, like, share, and subscribe. To receive instant notification each time I upload, please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification.
Helping you along the way. Helping you to make it through another day. Yeah. Everything you need to know that you never knew that you need to know. Like our perspective.
Well, hello and welcome to the Lockhart Perspective. And I am Felicia Lockhart. This evening, I do have a guest with me, which is Ronnie Mann. And tonight, we're going to be looking specifically at the origins of a specific word. Oftentimes on my channel, you'll hear me make a comment, and that is that I don't subscribe to the word with the R. And I don't want to say it here because a lot of times you get things that are misconstrued, but it starts with a R, a C, and it ends with an M. How about that? So, what I am here to share with you is a few things that'll tell us where the word began and how it plays into our history here in America. So, here is a nice little story, and it's called The Ugly, Fascinating History of the Word Racism. It was written in on January 6th of 2014. This is a gentleman here by the name of Richard Henry Pratt. He was the first person the Oxford English Dictionary records as using the word racism. Let that sink in. It was one person who used the word, and he was famous for having coined it. So now it says that he was very famous for having used it in a speech decrying it, but his own legacy was a checkered one. All right. This comes from the Library of Congress, this photo. Now, the Oxford Dictionary first recorded the utterance of the word racism, and it was used by a man named Richard Henry Pratt in 1902. Very important that year, 1902. Why was that time frame important? Well, it'll let us know a lot. 1902, keep a pencil there because that's important. All right. So let's go on further. It says, it's a quote from him. It says, the man's name was in 1902, Pratt was railing against the evils of racial segregation. Segregating any class or race of people apart from the rest of the people kills the progress of the segregated people or makes their growth very slow. Association of races and classes is necessary to destroy racism and classism. Okay. Although Pratt might have been the first person to inveigh against racism and its deleterious effects by name, he is much better remembered for a very different coinage, and that was kill the Indians, save the man. That's what he was famous for. Again, he made the other statement surrounding racism in 1902. It's very important to understand. A great general has said that the only good Indian is a dead one, Pratt said. In a sense, I agree with the sentiment, but only in this. that all the Indian there is in the race should be dead. All of them. Kill the Indian in him, save the man. Kill the Indian in him, save the man. We're still living with the after effects of what Pratt thought and did. His story serves as a useful parable for why discussions of racism remain so deeply contentious even now. Well, let's back up a bit. Beginning in the 1880s, a group of well-heeled white men would travel upstate New York each year to attend a Lake Mohonk conference of the Friend of the Indian. Their primary focus was a solution to the, quote, Indian problem. The need for the government to deal with the Native American groups living in lands that had been forcibly seized from them. The Plains Wars had decimated the Native American population, but they were coming to an end. There was a general feeling among these men and others and other U.S. leaders that remaining Native Americans would be wiped out with a generation or two, destroyed by disease and starvation. Excuse me. The Lake Mohonk attendees wanted to stop that from happening, and they pressed lawmakers to change the government's policy towards Indian. Pratt in particular was a staunch advocate of folding Native Americans into white life, assimilation through education. He persuaded Congress to let him test out his ideas, and they gave him an abandoned military post in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, to set up a boarding school for Native American children or Native children. He was also able to convince many Native Americans, including some tribal leaders, to send their children far away from home and leave them in his charge. They had reasons to be skeptical of Pratt, given the dubious history of white promises to Indians. Now, I want you guys to look at these folks very carefully, and there's a purpose for me saying this, okay? These chiefs were smart men, said Grace Chandelier, a professor of Native American Studies at Northern Michigan. They saw the handwriting on the wall. They knew their children were going to need to be educated in the ways of the dominant culture, or they weren't going to survive. These are the Chiricahua Apaches. That's who these people are. Okay? Notice how they look a little Hispanic in a way, just a bit. Well, I'm going to show you why. And I want to let you know who he was literally speaking to. It's a very, very hard fact that we're going to have to understand. What I'm going to do right now is show you who these folks were so that you get it. All right? I'm going to go here to Wikipedia and let you see it. I know Wikipedia is really not that great, right? But hopefully this is not that bad, because I got two more things that'll break them down to you. Now, this right here is the Chiricahua. They're one of the socio-culturally related Native American tribes in the southwestern United States, which include Salkanade, which is their area, all of these different plains of the Native American areas, right? But look where they are. They're based on the Southern Plains and the southwestern United States, culturally related to the other Apache peoples. Now, when you look at when they came into the United States, let me break this down to you, because this right here, this will be the kicker. They were in another part of the United States altogether. And they didn't even become a part of the United States until far after they were conquered. Here you go. This is cracking me up, you guys, because if we don't understand who the Apache and who these folks are, we will lump them into everybody else that was in the Louisiana area, the Mississippi area. And that means that this fella had a problem with Indians for a long time. Apache before 1861. So wait a minute. This fella over here made his statement when? 1902. Okay. So the Apache before 1861. The origin beliefs. The chief deity of the Apache was Usan, who's well governed by all. Usan existed before the creation of the universe. He created the first mother with no parents who sang 4 times the sacred number of the Apache. Her singing began the creation of the universe. Okay, yada yada. That's nice. But let's go down here to the geographical origins. The Apache are the Athabascan people. This means they speak a language that originated in northwestern North America. It is generally believed that they were pushed south from this area by warring tribes. It's believed. Whenever you see the word believed or possible or maybe, that means the person writing really doesn't know. So they were believed to have been pushed to the southern areas by warring tribes. They entered into what became the southwestern United States between 1400 and 1500, based on recent archaeological evidence. The Apache were a group of different Apache bands. This particular Chiricahua were a different Apache band that settled in what is now southeastern Arizona, southwestern New Mexico, and northern Mexico in the Sonoran and the Chirihuan, I can't say that, you guys, sorry about that, deserts. But this particular group of Indians were named for the mountains in the southeast Arizona. The Apaches did not refer to themselves as Apache, which was a word that was translated to enemy in Zuni and was later adopted by the Spanish. Apaches instead they referred to themselves as with variants of NDE, simply meaning the people. Okay. This is the region that they were referring to. See, there's Alaska. See, that's the Gulf of Alaska right there. This is the region that they were all in this area right up here. There's Canada. There's all this, all that. Isn't that amazing? So the culture were a nomadic people. They lived off the land and they moved with the seasons, usually spending a winter in warmer plains of the Southwest and the summer in the cooler mountains. They were hunter-gatherers who lived in huts called wickups, constructed from grass, hides. Here's the most important piece. Let's scroll all the way down here. The conflict with Spain and Mexico. So apparently, there was a conquistador, Francisco Vasquez de Coronado, was the first of the Europeans to explore the Southwest in the 1500s, searching for cities of gold. He did not run into these Apache, but some claim to have seen him and hidden for an entire lifetime, the man's entire lifetime. I don't know about that. By the 1700s, the Apache were raiding into Mexico, which was under Spanish occupation at the time. The Spanish recognized this as a problem by the 1730s and began establishing forts and stationing more troops. The more intense part of the conflict occurred in the 1770s. Later, the Spanish began to hand out rations, which resulted in relative peace. In 1821, Mexico gained independence from Spain. Peace began to deteriorate with the Apache, and the Mexican soldiers withdrew from forts and rations were no longer handed out. The Chiricahua people began raiding in Mexico again in 1835. The Mexican government announced a bounty on Apache scalps. The United States gains the Southwest. Very important time period, because the Mexican-American War began in 1846 and ended with the U.S. victory in 1848. That's 2 years. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and later the Gadsden Purchase officially made the Southwest a part of the United States as it is today. These events brought the U.S. settlement to the Southwest along with the U.S. military. Just before the Apache Wars in 1861, the Chiricahua Apache population was estimated to be around 1,200. So that means that that entire region, am I understanding that, Roddy Man? Just give me a yes or no. Am I understanding that entire region, we gained it in 1846 and 1848? There was a war and we gained it after 1848?
That's what it says.
That's what it says. Okay, so let's go back over here to this cat. 1902. He looks a lot older than 40. He looks a lot older than 30. What was the real problem? I wonder, what could it have been? Why did he feel the need to bring up the word racism, create the word racism, and then make sure that it was parceled out? Why were they such a big problem? Why did they have to go to New York and talk about them? 1,200 people. And they didn't look like a lot of other Indians. But I want you guys to understand something very chief. When you look at the part where he said that they went up to New York, where they went to New York and they wanted to have this big meeting, they had a large meeting about how they were a problem and that they wanted to pretty much stamp them out. And you also saw the picture of the two sets of Indians. They were at their homes and then they ended up putting them in their school. Those are not the Native American Indians. That particular part of the sector that they got when they took over, that was a whole another area. That was a whole entire different area. That was not down in the Mississippi Delta. So this cat, who was an American, had a problem with the Indian long before 1902. Long before 1861, he had an issue pretty much throughout his entire career. The timeline tells me that this was a problem, period. And it wasn't just a problem in that region. For him to use that word and to understand that the Native American was going to be an issue, it had to have been an issue longer than before these folks popped up. Longer. Because the region that they were in was not a part of America when they ruled it. A lot closer down there to the Mexico area. If not, they wouldn't have had to fight. They were fighting for space. That's all. That's what it's always about. It's always about he who gets the most land. Remember the game of war? I just took your battleship. I just took your land. I took all your stuff. And when you got the person's land, you got their money. Why? Because they have nothing else. So they took it all. Who was this cat talking about? And why does the term racism now translate over mostly to the copper-colored people? I'm going to submit that the reason why was because he had a Native American, quote, Native American problem across the board. And it wasn't just these people. It was the Cherokee. It was the Creek. It was the Choctaw. It was all of the Blackfoot. It was every single one of them. It was every single one of them. The word has been used historically on purpose in the exact same way that it's being used right now. That's the reason why I say I don't believe in that word. I believe you can be bigoted. I believe that you can be prejudiced, but I don't believe in the whole race thing because we're all of the human race. That's why you hear me say that. But this right here, what this cat was talking about, had a whole lot more to do with the Native Americans in the United States as a whole. It had less to do with this particular group of people and a whole lot more to do with what they had to deal with as a whole. Mr. Pratt had his own set of issues. They really did not have anything to do with all of the boarding schools that they had given to Native Americans. Do you know why I tell you that? The boarding schools that he created, that they allegedly created, did you know that there are old documentaries that are here in the United States that deal with the boarding school type of setup, the homes type of setup, and it's people that look like my mom and them that went there. The sharecropping that they offered my great grandfather, because he was a farmer in Mississippi, on both sides, and my grandmother on both sides. They were farmers. They offered them sharecropping on their land that did not work. Why? Because that was their land. And my grandparents, great grandparents, didn't get nearly what they were supposed to get. I submit that these people that they had a problem with, the Native Americans, was not as big as they're making it out in the 1890s and in the 1900s. That was us. Might get mad. I'm sorry. Double check it. Double check me. Do a lot more than just glossing. Go to the Library of Congress and study up some of the stuff, because that's whose name is all over all of the documents. That stuff that I just showed you, with the exception of the stuff that was in Wikipedia, all that NPR stuff, the ugly, fascinating history of the word racism. That stuff is all in the Library of Congress. And you can best believe that for 1,200 Indian people, they would not have gone through so much turmoil. But I guarantee you that when you consider why they use the word racism right now today, it is because of the fact that it continues to draw division. And that's exactly what they wanted to do. They needed to draw division in the people who look like those who they want to create as downtrodden. I only believe that you're as down as the person. You're only as down as what your mind makes you. If you're going to be down, you're going to be down because your mind tells you that you're low. And that's what's going to make you down. You can rise above any single thing that happens, but when people continue to perpetrate lies and push a word on you that ain't real, that some man made up, yeah, that's a problem. You will forever believe that you were the underdog. And that's exactly what that word does. So this being the ugly origin of the word tells me a whole lot, especially when the same cat can come and say that if you kill the Indian in him and you save the man. How many times did our people change their name? We went from Cherokee to colored, well, from Cherokee to the N-word to the colored, then from the colored to the black. The colored was copper. Colored, it wasn't black. Red, brown, wasn't black. So you kill the Indian and you save the man. Kill the Indian in him and save the man. You know, I always said I never heard my mother tell me about my great grandparents or grandparents or anybody that came from Africa per se. I never heard my mama say it. I always heard her talk about her father, who was a Cherokee, and how they used to pick cotton on his land. And she used to always end up with these splinters in her fingers. All these, it would cut up her fingers, Ronnie. It would just cut her little fingers up. She used to tell us those stories. I always remember that. Always remember that. My great grandmother on my father's side, unfortunately, had made children with a man who came in from Ireland, and his last name was King. And I say unfortunately because he actually had a full white family that mirrored my great grandmother's family. She was from the Belzoni seat in Mississippi. And the Belzoni seat was the hub of the Choctaw people. In order for him to have that land, he had to have her. So here I am. The particular area that they came from was founded in the late 1800s, early 1900s, late 1800s. I won't say the name of the city, but you don't have to do much digging. It's the Belzoni seat of the Choctaw Indian. It's the Belzoni seat in Mississippi. Nonetheless, that's how he acquired her land. And she was a little round-faced lady. Round face. Dark red. Choctaw. So I submit that it was a whole lot of shrouding going on. That there was a whole lot of, they told me I couldn't even find my my grandmother's birth certificate. They told me don't look for her birth certificate. When I went down there to get her death certificate, the lady bent over real quietly and whispered, "You ain't gonna be able to find her birth certificate." You know why? Because it's not one. Not one. My children's father's father was born in Oklahoma on an Indian reservation. His name ain't on the birth certificate. It was on a scroll. What is my point? It is time for us to stop accepting things that people give us and accepting them and swallowing them as truth and do our own due diligence and our own research. Because this man just said, kill the Indian and save the man. How many Indians do you see walking around that you think is an Indian? This is Felicia Lockhart, and this has been the Lockhart Perspective. To receive instant notification each time I upload, please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification.
The